thanks for joining us again for another episode of Triple Play. If you haven't already, make sure you're subscribing. Like right now, stop, subscribe. Make sure you like and give us some comments, and make sure you're sharing. The more you share, the more we get out, the more people that follow us, the better it goes. And just so that you know, for those who've been asking, sometime in the next week we will be broadcasting to all the other platforms, so we will be on Spotify and everybody else. So for today, we want to kick it off with our lineup with something that is on everybody's mind, which is the NFL playoffs. And we have a special guest today, a friend of mine, Andy McCollum. He's a 15-year NFL vet, played with the Saints, the Rams, and Detroit, went to 2 Super Bowls, winning one with the greatest show on turf. Thank you, Andy, for being on today. How you doing?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me, guys.
Yeah, thanks for coming. Hey, Andy, how many times did you go into the playoffs as a player? Can you, off the top of your head?
Oh, they were all with the Rams, so we went, 4 or 5 years there.
Yeah, that's what I thought. I thought it was 5 or 6.
Great show on turf. Yeah,
those were great years. So. Now, quick question. Any thoughts on Hamlin when you saw that hit the other day? Did that look unusual to you, or was that just, do you think, one of those freak things as a player?
Yeah, that was quite unusual, and yeah, definitely a freak thing. It didn't look like that bad of a hit, and he just got up and collapsed right back to the ground. So yeah, it looked, and it was understandable why guys on the field were upset. It looked kind of freaky, and it's very unusual. So when I missed it, I was in my car at the time, but when I got home and saw it on the telecast, my family was talking about it, and you could tell they showed the coaches in the locker rooms or in the hallway there by the locker rooms, and they were talking to each other and hugging each other, and I'm thinking, man, this must be pretty bad. Is this kid still alive?
Yeah.
But it turns out to be a pretty good story because he's doing pretty good now, from what I understand.
Yeah. He actually the other day sent out, I guess, a phone call or a tweet to his teams, and then thanked everybody for the prayers. So great to hear that he's seems to be recovering, and we will continue to pray and wish him well.
Sorry, guys.
So,
that's gotta be jarring to see CPR performed in person. I mean, it's one thing
right there on the field.
TV show, but you really get to see how hard they're pushing on someone when they're doing that stuff.
Yeah.
Tough.
All right, well, let's jump right into the playoffs here. So we've got some great matches, Andy. We've got Miami against Buffalo, Baltimore against the Bengals, Chargers against the Jaguars, Seattle against the 49ers, New York against Minnesota, and we have the Cowboys against Tampa Bay. And then we have 2 teams that got the bye this week. We got KC, a really good team. Last minute Mahomes, Miracle Mahomes this season. And then you've got the Eagles, who have been solid most of this season. What are your thoughts on those? Anybody that really stands out this season to you?
Yeah, I think like you mentioned there, the Eagles have been solid all year, and I think they got the inside track there to the Super Bowl on the NFC side for sure. I don't see anybody, someone has to pull an upset on that side to beat them and get in. As good as Kansas City is, it's obvious the Bills are probably headed for that showdown there.
Yeah,
them and the Bills. Yeah,
Bills have played tough all season.
Well, the Bills would have to beat the Bengals in the next round, wouldn't they? If they both win.
Yeah, if they both win, they would play the they would play the Bengals, and then the winner of the Jaguars and Chargers will play Kansas City first round. So
breaking up on them again.
Yeah, can you hear me now?
I think.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah. We can hear you. We can always hear you. Just let us know if you can't hear us. We'll take a little pause.
Yeah, sometimes I can.
That's all right. I think this is.
If you ask me a question and I don't answer, then you know I can do it.
Well, if you haven't heard a question in a while, just make one up in your mind and answer it, and we'll just listen to it.
All right.
I was just gonna say, I think Kansas City, Philly. It just seems like there's such big gaps in the talent levels for the top teams in the NFL this year. I don't see KC having a problem. I don't see Philly having a problem going through any of these teams.
I don't know. The Bills are going to be tough. You know, what's interesting to me out of when I look at all these teams is the fact that Seattle is in the playoffs, and a lot of people didn't expect them to make it. Of course, they kind of crept in this last week, but again, I mean, you know, you got a team that traded their quarterback. You know, a lot of people thought that was kind of crazy. I mean, you trade Wilson, you send him to Denver. Hindsight right now, that's looking like a really, really good move. I mean, the rest of the team in Seattle stayed well, and they make the playoffs without Russell Wilson. And of course, you know, Denver's missing from this page and has been kind of a wreck all season. The other one that I think is interesting, and obviously if you've been paying attention the past week, you know that Arizona Cardinals, high expectations going into the season, had a terrible season. Coach is gone, GM is gone. And now you've got an owner saying, well, whoever we hire, we're going to have this player help us out on, which I'm really kind of curious how that's going to be, because the big beef on him has been his lack of motivation during some of the practices and things like that. So, you know, he doesn't seem to be somebody who likes to be coachable. So that is another one that just kind of puzzles me. You know, very rare. It's rare to see both a coach and a GM go that quickly over a player they just drafted. I can't, in my mind, remember a time that I saw something quite chaotic as that. And then again, watching Seattle make the playoffs, when most teams, if they lose their star quarterback via trade or whatever, they don't tend to come back and make it to the playoffs. Any thoughts from you, Andy, on that?
Yeah, I was rooting hard for the Lions to get in on that spot there. You know, since I did play 1 year for them, and they were fun to watch. You know, turning things around midseason like that and making a run. But they were right there too.
That's a tough team to root for. They got one playoff win.
Yeah, I know.
That's a tough team to root for, Andy.
Yeah.
Hey,
I know.
Speaking of the Cardinals not playing well, how much, you know, I know in baseball there's 25 guys on a team. So if you got a few guys that are kind of bad apples, you can usually isolate those guys, and they usually come around to the way things are done. That's a little different in football. You got, how many guys you got in football? 53? Is that right?
On a roster?
Yeah, 53 plus there's several practice squads.
Practice squads all around. So I just imagine in the locker room, if there's a group of bad guys, I feel like that's harder to weed out in a locker room, in a football locker room. Is that true or not? Like a small group of people in football can wreck a team. And I'm just thinking of the Cardinals, maybe that happened with them, and they're blaming the coaches for not getting it under control and all that.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I've been on different teams where, you know, the guys like that are, you know, harmful to the chemistry of the team and the overall success that obviously relates to that. But, you know, that's usually, it's like, you know, you like to see, you know, new coaches get at least a year or 2 or 3 maybe years to weed out, you know, who's going to fit into their program, who's going to buy into their philosophy and cooperate, you know, with the team aspect of it. And, you know, everyone knows that, you know, a lot of these guys are, you know, super talented, and, you know, they make plays regardless. So a lot of times it's hard for even coaches to tell them, hey, that's not the way we're going to do it.
Right.
If that's been successful for them in the past. And
right.
So, yeah, that could definitely been a factor in that situation.
Okay.
All right, so I want to hear your predictions for this upcoming week, okay? So, Miami or Buffalo? Andy, who do you think? Miami, Dolphins, or the Bills?
I'm going with Buffalo on that one. Let me ask you this. Is what's the quarterback there in Miami? Is Tua playing?
I think that he is, but, I mean, again, the Bills have been tough. I would follow you on that. I think Miami's a feel-good team, but the Bills have been a good team all year. So I'm going to say Bills. How about you, Scott?
Bills, yeah. Bills.
Yeah. All right, next round. Baltimore or Bengals? What do you got, Andy?
I'm going with Bengals. I had this was the first year I've attempted to do the fantasy football thing with my son and a few of the kids.
How's that going?
And I had Joe Burrow on there, and he did really well for me this year. So.
Oh, well, let's keep the luck going. I like the Bengals, too. You know, that's another one. They have not been in a long time, and when I think of the Bengals, I still think of Ickey Woods, you know? So,
oh, yeah.
Yeah. Ickey Shuffle. That's right. So, growing up, that was prominent. So, I remember those days, and I would love to see the Bengals. So, I'll meet you there. I'll say I was kind of neutral on that one, but I think you threw me over thinking about Ickey. So, I'm going to go Bengals on that. How about you, Scott?
Bengals, yeah. Joe Burrows.
Joe Burrows, yeah. He's a solid guy.
My guy.
All right, Chargers versus Jags. Chargers versus Jags. What do you got,
I'm going to
Andy?
go with the Jags just because they're hot. And they're coming on strong. How many they've won, like 3 or 4 in a row, haven't they?
Yeah.
More than that. So,
Yeah, they're fast.
yeah.
That's a fast team.
That is a very fast team. I'm going to go Chargers just because I want LA to have another winner, but not the Rams because I'm a sore loser since they left St. Louis and left you, buddy. So I like to see the Chargers kind of do it, but I'm okay if the Jags do it. That'd be fun as well.
People still out in California call them the San Diego Chargers.
Yeah, very well.
Stuck.
Yeah,
Cleveland Indians.
Yeah.
All right, so the other side of the coin here, we got Seattle versus the 49ers. Who do you got, Andy?
I'm going with 49ers. They look pretty good. And like I said, Seattle just barely squeaked in there anyway. But like you said, though, what's that quarterback? Smith, man, he's having a heck of a year for a new quarterback on that squad. So
Gino.
might be a good game.
Yeah, I'm going Seattle just because growing up, my best friend was a Seattle Seahawks fan. I was a Rams fan. And that was our rivalry, going to the games and watching you play, Andy. And he would dress up as a Hawk. I'd dress up as the Rams, and we had a good time. So since the Rams aren't in there, that's who I'm going to have to go with. That's just how it is when you're close to your friends. So how about you, Scott?
I got Giants. I was a Giants fan growing up. I was born late 80s, early, I was coming up late.
Well, we're talking
90s.
Seattle and 49ers, right?
49ers. What did I say?
You said Giants.
Oh, well, I was looking at the San Francisco, and my brain went basic.
You're going 49ers.
49ers, yeah.
All
I
right.
apologize.
Yeah.
49ers.
I grew up idolizing them.
Giants fan. Come on.
Well, we had the Cardinals here in St. Louis for a while when I was a kid. That was actually my first football game I went and saw the Cardinals about a year before they left and went down to Arizona. And then after that, you had the Joe Montana years shortly after that. And so, it was the 49ers kind of became your team for a little while. The Bears were fun too. You always had, that great year of them where they put out music. They were just entertaining. Not only a good team, but they were very entertaining.
What a decade.
Yeah, that was a fun time football. I think early 2000s was fun, right? Right, Andy?
Oh, yeah. That's fun for me.
The height of football? Was that the height of football?
In St. Louis, at least. We we brought home a Super Bowl. I remember the streets and the key. You had the Kurt Warner story. Nobody thought Kurt was going to do that. We were supposed to be a good team. But then Trent Green goes down. That was the big move they made in the offseason. They went and got Trent Green. They went and somehow lucked in to get a Marshall Faulk. He had not done so well in the playoffs, so they made him expendable because they drafted James. And so we wound up getting both Faulk and Trent Green. So there was high expectations, I think, that year. Andy had been signed, right, Andy? So they pulled you in right there that time there. And you had started kind of peaking with New Orleans and had gained some traction. So they went on. They had a lot of good people that they had picked up at that time.
I remember when Trent Green got hurt. It felt like the whole city died.
Oh, I agree.
Did that feel like that in the locker room at all? I don't know.
Yeah,
I don't remember why. It was a big deal. I was 13.
Well, that was a brutal hit. It was an illegal hit. The player who hit him had done this to several other players. He was known for his dirty hits, and so, Andy, was he one of the dirtiest players during your tenure after you took out Trent? Obviously, you faced him for a while. He was still in the league for a while.
Yeah, he would be up near the top of those lists. Yeah.
Yeah. So he had the reputation. So that was. I felt like everybody had high expectations. St. Louis. Good news is they gave a great opportunity for young Kurt Warner, and obviously he became the city's hero and had a great but short tenure here in St. Louis. But his 3 years that we went to the Super Bowl twice in those 3 years. I mean, that was tremendous. Ironically, we're getting ready to talk about the Giants, and that's where he would go after St. Louis. So it was interesting to me because he actually, that first season for the Giants, if memory serves me, I think he was 6-2 before they pulled him and put in young Eli. They drafted him with the first draft. And then he would go in and play, and he didn't win a game until the last game of the season, which was against the Eagles. I won't forget that. And that was because the Eagles were good that year, and they sat all their starters out because they'd already clinched home field advantage. So Eli got his first win on the last game of the season, but they were 6-2 prior.
Good thing Tom Brady wasn't on that team.
That is true.
What are your thoughts on that? If management, coaching staff says, "Hey, trainers, hey Tom, why don't you take this week off, buddy?" And he says no. What is that? How does that feel as a teammate? Do you want him to play? Do you want him to rest? Do you want him to do whatever he wants?
Nah, I guess it would depend on the situation, but as a player going into a game, regardless of the implications, you want to win.
Yeah.
I mean, you don't want to go out you don't ever want to go spend your time on the field and not expect to give 100%, give your best team and your best lineup or your best effort out there. So I kind of like that idea that I understand the coach don't want to get guys hurt and you want to save them for playoffs, but how many times have we seen that backfired and guys take the last week off or then they come back 2 weeks later and you're not ready to go. You look like crap.
Yeah.
I mean,
well, and also when you're playing careful, that's in my experience, when you're doing something careful, that's when you get hurt. You're doing something your body normally doesn't do. You go a direction.
Exactly.
You restart. So.
Well, I'd even say this. Anytime when I think of that, immediately that came to my mind is preventative defense. Anytime I hear about they're going to go into preventative defense, I go, oh no, this team's going to lose. I don't care how much they're up. That's just it's not preventative, right? So the only best defense is a great offense, right? And a great offense is a good defense, right? So you got to keep attacking. And so all right, going into our next few here, we got New York against Minnesota. Who do you got, Andy?
I'm going with Minnesota.
All right.
And I don't really have a reason why, but I think they look pretty good. They look pretty good this year.
I'm going to go with them just because it's been a long time coming for them to kind of make some noise in the playoffs. I'd like to see Minnesota do something, in that regard. How about you, Scott?
Yeah, I'm going Vikings, and the only reason is because Randy Moss made me like the Vikings. I'm a lifelong Vikings fan because of Randy Moss.
There you go. Yeah, back in those days. That's when they had 2 good wide receivers. So.
Oh my goodness, their purple helmets, everything they got going on in Minnesota.
All right, well let's last one. So Philly or Tampa? Who do you got, Andy?
Not Philly, Dallas. Tampa.
I'm sorry, Dallas. Sorry, I said Philly. I meant Dallas. Dallas or Tampa?
Yeah, you had me off guard. I'm going with Dallas.
Okay.
I don't know. Tom Brady's a cheater, so I'm going with Dallas.
And you can say that. We were having that conversation.
Yeah, you have the same
earlier.
stance as me as cheaters.
Yeah, well, and he's done it more than once, right? I mean,
We personalized his cheating.
Yeah. So
False.
well, no, I mean his first one was the team recording the Rams practice session in the Super Bowl.
Well, he has plausible deniability in that case.
Sure, watched the whole video, knew exactly what was going to happen.
I'm just saying, he could say, I didn't watch the videos, I don't even know what they're talking about. They must have game planned with that info. But the footballs, when he deflated them, that's a big one.
Well,
that's akin to using pine tar when you're pitching or a spitball. That's
fair enough.
Frowned upon.
Well, fair enough on that.
Hello?
Yep, you there? Andy, can you still hear us?
We got you. We're losing you. Can you hear us?
Can you hear us, Andy?
What?
Hello?
It's not you, it's us. Is it us?
Andy, are you there?
Oh, I can hear you now.
All right. Well, Andy, we're appreciative of you being here, and if anybody wants to get a hold of you, obviously you're not playing football now. You're doing financial planning. Is that what I understand?
Yes. Yes. Can you hear me?
Yep.
I can hear you.
Yeah. So
Okay. Yeah, I lost you there for another second. But.
no problem. So you're doing financial planning right now. If people want to reach out to you and schedule a free consultation with you and your team, and I believe you're with Resource One, what's the best number for them to reach you at?
Yeah. Our office number is 636-458-1798, or you can go online at rs1a.com. And you can learn a little bit about what we do right there on the website.
Awesome, awesome. So if you're somebody who's listening and you've been wondering what you can do, whether it be retirement, whether you're a young married couple and you're thinking, hey, we're getting ready to buy our first house or just bought our first house, what do we do now? Life insurance, insurance in general, doing some investment planning, just want to get that free consultation. Maybe you're thinking about retirement and you're thinking, hey, we got to make some pretty big decisions coming up. Give my man Andy a call. If you thought he was good on the football field, you should check him out on the office field, I guess you would call it. So at the office.
Can I put in the slogan for you guys? Okay. There's nothing Andy McCollum can't tackle.
That's it, right there. Nothing he can't tackle.
No financial situation Andy can't tackle.
Well, Andy, thank you so much for being our guest today. We look forward to hopefully having you back on the show here soon, and maybe will help us through the playoffs here as we head towards the Super Bowl. So you have a great day, sir. Sure.
Andy, thanks for stopping by.
All right. Well, we appreciate Andy and his time today, and now it is time for us to start getting into our lineup. So, and you're going to lead us off today with our guy today. So who are we talking about now?
Trevor Bauer.
Trevor Bauer.
Bauer's back in the news.
He is. So we were, the last episode, we talked about how he was back, got out of suspension. He was going to be a Dodger, going to help that team. And then he has a meeting with the team president. Things seem good. And then the following day, this drops. Why don't you read us what the Dodgers have to say?
All right. I didn't pull it up. Let me pull it up.
All right.
I got it pulled up. Here we go. The Dodgers organization believes that allegations of sexual assault or domestic violence should be thoroughly investigated, with due process given to the accused. From the beginning, we have fully cooperated with Major League Baseball's investigation and strictly followed the process stipulated under MLB's Joint Domestic Violence, Sexual Assault, and Child Abuse Policy. 2 extensive reviews of all the available evidence in this case, one by Commissioner Manfred and another by a neutral arbiter, concluded that Mr. Bauer's actions warranted the longest ever active player suspension in our sport for violations of this policy. Now that this process has been completed, and after careful consideration, we have decided that he will no longer be a part of our organization.
Well,
end quote.
Yeah, appreciate that. And then Bauer replied back, and basically I'm going to summarize what he replies, but Bauer comes in and says, hey, I thought we had a good meeting. I'm sorry that you guys, don't want me anymore, and I wish you guys well. So he kind of parts. I put the actual statement up on our screen for those that want to actually read it word for word. But that is where we're at. And then, so because of where we're at, that also leaves him right now, according to Fabian of The Athletic, the Dodgers are on the hook for $22.5 million, and when he clears waivers, any team can pick him up for $720,000. So you're talking about a guy who just a few years ago was considered one of the elite pitchers in baseball. He's still young, had 2 years off on his arm. I don't know if he's been practicing or where he's at in shape and pitching shape, but for $720,000, I mean, there's a lot of teams that might take a gamble on somebody like that to see if they can help out their team. I mean, we've certainly seen worse. I was actually kind of surprised the Dodgers did that, given the fact that their young pitcher in 2019 had some similar, not quite the same allegations, but had some assault allegations against his wife, and he faced a 20-game suspension. But hey, the Dodgers have been pretty strict on where they stand on these things. So to some it became no surprise. A little surprise to me. But Bauer's now a free agent. What kind of team wants him? What kind of team could use him? What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I think that Man, they must have really not wanted him because that's a lot of money to just lay aside, right? So they must have really thought hard about this. I would imagine that they had some conversations with some of the clubhouse leaders, maybe some of the other players. I don't know that, but I would imagine that. And I'm sure they had some thoughts on that. But as far as, you have to think about the Dodgers organization. I mean, it's storied, it's historic. They take pride in having people that wear the jersey the right way. I think as an organization, if the focus of the fans ever, goes away from the name that's on the front, Dodgers, and starts going to the name on the back for bad reasons, I think they're pretty quick to say, like, this isn't how we do things over here, and they let them go.
Yeah. So what kind of team wants Bauer? I have a prediction. I'm going to make a prediction right now because we had some breaking news we're going to be talking about here very shortly. I'm going to say, as a consolation prize, that the Mets reach out to him and sign him. Can you imagine that him?
I like the way you phrase that. It's a consolation prize for the fans.
Yeah,
and I think the Mets fans, honestly, if whether they voice this or not, would be thrilled at the chance to just go to the stadium and wait for a bad game so that they could yell at him.
Well, of course,
but Mets fans would love that.
Absolutely, and on top of that, I think that it would be interesting just from the fact that they've already got a couple of older pitchers. He would, I could see him being a good, $720,000. Now, there's a lot of other teams that are probably going to try to throw their hat in there. I could see the Rangers maybe being aggressive, though I think they're kind of more of a conservative team. But Texas, they've got a lot of good names on there, a lot of good players. Taking a shot on a guy like that with a little bit of a reputation, I guess also
got a big reputation.
Well, that's
big
true.
Reputation.
But it also might come down to maybe they tell him, hey, off the social media, you've got to, we'll sign you on a 1-year or 2-year deal, but you have to be off social media. We don't want you on that, and we need you to be a team guy. And maybe he sells that. Maybe he's like, hey, I'm a reformed guy. I've really learned during this period of time. I don't think I did anything wrong, but I did do some self-reflecting. I will watch the kind of character people I'm around. I'm going to change my attitude. I'm going to continue to be adamant that I did nothing wrong. The law supports that, but I will, I'm going to make that stand. Or does a team like the Cardinals, who, the Cardinals are a good organization, but they've had a few trouble players over the years. They've taken chances. They signed a PED guy or picked up a PED guy at one point, and so. And they've turned a lot of those guys around. They come to St. Louis. The fans love them. They don't have to. They realize that they can be a big fish in a small pond, and they don't have to maybe make all the noise at some of these other places. So, the other thing I keep thinking about with him is then for the Dodgers, and I'm going to put them up here. Somebody that really makes sense to me for them is Zach Greinke.
Mm-hmm.
I was already pointing this out to you the other day, but I just want to. I printed this out because I really want to highlight this because I was looking at Zach's career, and he basically has 3 solid years with the Dodgers. Okay, he has 5-4, 2.63, 17-8, 2.71 ERA, and 19-3 on his final year in 2015 at a 1.66. Now I don't expect him to be back to that, but he wasn't even that good with the Royals. You go back in when he was Cy Young stuff with the Royals, we're talking 16-8 was his best year at 2.16, but most of those years are 4.17, 3.47. So he's not. You can obviously when you look at his paper before and after, it's very clear that he was very comfortable, did very well in that stadium. And that team, the Dodgers, obviously a different team now, but a lot of the same players. They still got Kershaw, and obviously, Zach and Kershaw seem to be a good pairing.
Yeah.
Is this one of those things where Zach Greinke could go back to the Dodgers? They write a decent check. I think he signed last year $17 million 1 year with the Royals. He's still unsigned right now, so maybe his offer is a little bit less than that right now. But for him, maybe go back to the place that you did you had some of your best years and had some of your best memories and had a shot to win. And obviously, the Dodgers are a team year in and year out, but certainly more than the Royals were last year, having a chance to win a championship.
Yeah, and Dodgers are perfectly fine with bringing back people that they've previously let go. They did that recently with Trace Thompson. So I think I think any team should take Zach. I mean, look at from the start of his career, except for 1 year, and I think he broke his collarbone that year in 2016. He's had 200 plus innings.
Oh yeah, he's an innings guy. He's solid. Last year for the Royals, who weren't a very good team, still had a very solid and respectable season.
Yeah.
I'd be very happy if the Cardinals gave him a 1 year offer just to kind of give him as a buffer with a lot of injury questions over the years. You know, you've with Flaherty having injuries in the past. I mean, three of the five starters for the Cardinals have had injury pass over the past couple of years. What are the odds one of those guys doesn't get injured again? Or
they will.
Yeah,
something will happen. But like this, you're signing 200 plus innings. So any team that wants a solid 200 innings, sign them.
Yeah, and still productive. Yeah, not just 200.
Oh yeah, it's not 200 with like a 6 or 5. 200 with
a goodie
with a chance for a 2, probably a mid 3.
All right. Well, now let's break into our breaking news because right before we went live today, I actually had to shuffle really quickly because our man Correa. So I actually had him in this story because so I actually started yesterday. Yesterday, it comes out that it looked like he was going to stay with the Mets. John Heyman reports, hey, we had this great conversation on Monday on a podcast with the owner of the Mets, and he seems all, like we're going to work this out. Then not even like 6 hours later, all of a sudden there's a tweet from Rosenthal saying, hey, he's going to look like talks are heating up with Twins. And then just right before the show, it's announced by John that guess what? He is a Twin. So Correa landed with the Twins. Now, I want to put up the terms here because these are kind of interesting. He gets $200 million 6 years. Looks like the Mets, from what John is reporting, and I've got the full Twitter up on our screen for those who want to look, but John is saying that it was around 150, I believe 6 or 158, where the Mets were wanting to go for 6. It actually went 12 years, but the last 6 had some conditional things apparently dealing with the injury.
At-bats, I think. He needed to get certain at-bats.
Yeah, well, they didn't. He doesn't give a lot of details in the tweet, so it very well could be. It could be at-bats, but it definitely was conditional.
Because his contract with the Twins can go to 270 million, and I think after the 6th year, I think I read the 7th and 8th. After the 5th year, his 5th year, he has to have 525 at bats, and then the next year kicks in.
Gotcha.
So on and so forth.
Well, I can say this: the Twins got the star they're looking for. I wish him well. I hope Correa. He did well with them last year. I'm a huge Minnesota Twin fan. We've talked about that before. Growing up, Kirby Puckett was my man, and they obviously played the Cardinals hard in '87. So I like that. It's been a while since Minnesota's had superstar power like that. Maybe they brought him last year, but having consistent. Joey Mauer was their man for a few years, and then he kind of rode off in the sunset. So now they've got a guy they can kind of build around. I don't know if I were the Twins, I'd be paying that kind of money for his production, but they obviously think it's worth it. I have to imagine somewhere in there they have to move from shortstop to first or third. I just can't imagine you're going to sign a guy that long to be a shortstop. Somewhere down the road, I'm sure he's going to have to shift. With as tall as he is, I would think first base is a natural. So I don't know who Minnesota's first baseman is off the top of my head, but
it's pretty lean though. Pretty lean.
Yeah, but you can muscle up. Albert Pujols came up as a shortstop, third baseman, went out to left field, almost won a Gold Glove.
Miguel Cabrera did that. Yeah.
Yeah. So you can beef up a little bit. Those things happen, and but
did anything that rumor true about his brother?
Nothing more came of it. That was apparently just a rumor. There was a lot of stuff going on there about him for a while with that freak injury, but at the end of the day, sounds like out of all these things, the Twins to get their man. They offered the money. He tried to go to Giants. He tried to go to New York, and he winds up back in Minnesota. So maybe some things are just meant to be, and maybe this is going to be good for him and good for them. I hope so.
Yeah.
A competitive Minnesota is good for baseball. So
I agree.
So, all right. So I want to go into the next one, and I want to read this because it's very important, I think, that we read exactly what's going on. So you've got the number 5 ranked player in tennis, okay, and in Novak, and so Sports Illustrated reporting he could potentially be denied entry to the U.S. for not meeting the COVID-19 vaccine requirements per their January 4, 2023. He's a 21-time Grand Slam champion and has been unable to play many tournaments due to not being vaccinated. Currently ranked number 5, if he wins his 22nd Grand Slam title, he would tie Rafael Nadal for most men's title in history. His problems extend from the USA, extending the COVID-19 vaccine requirements for non-U.S. citizens through April 10th.
Rafael Nadal.
There you go.
Rafael Nadal.
Yeah, and so I'm just going to say, what this reminds me of a little bit, kind of thinking of history though, is what if you're those other tennis guys and you want, I mean, if I want a championship and he's not part of it and I know that he's one of the top 5 players, am I beating the best? Am I really am I really who I think I am? Because just right before COVID, he was the number 1 ranked player in tennis at one point there. So he went on a large streak and kind of gets thrown off because of all this whole vaccine thing. So my thoughts with that were thinking about Ali when he was banned during the war, the Vietnam War, because he didn't want to be part of the draft. You had all these boxers going on, and nobody could take on the best. And Ali said, if you want to take me on, eventually they came up with playing in South Africa. And you get George Foreman down there, and we get our famous Rumble in the Jungle. And guess what? Foreman was good, but Ali was better.
Right.
So Cassius / Ali came through.
I read it was over 100 degrees during that fight. Golly. Can you believe that?
No.
And they boxed, I think they did 15 rounds back then.
It didn't make it all the way because he beat him by knockout. Yeah. I think it was in the 8th round. But, man, I tell you, that was a great match. If you haven't watched it, it's on YouTube, so I highly recommend. One of my favorite things to do about every 4 or 5 years, I'll go back and watch a lot of the Joe Frazier, Ali, Cassius Clay, Foreman fights. Even some of the newer ones after that. You get the Buster Douglas and you get Tyson. Those guys, those are fun fights to watch, and it's great that you can go back and watch them. You won't have to watch long for most of Tyson's. They all last. Not many of them make it past the first round on him. So
it's hard to survive getting punched in the face by an iron fist.
I'm telling you what, man. That uppercut he had was amazing. So,
but Djokovic can't get in. Yeah. Are they? It's for sure. They're not going to let him in.
I don't know. That was the report that Sports Illustrated was saying, is that there's the potential. He had problems last year coming in here.
He couldn't come last year.
So it looks like this is going to be extended right now unless some kind of special provision is made. So I just go back and say, to me, it's a bum deal for the other players, because if I'm playing tennis and I want to be the best, I want to beat the best. I don't want to win the World Series playing the 5th best team in baseball who shouldn't have made it into,
right.
But some crazy thing happened.
Why doesn't he just come on vacation and then walk to the stadium and say, oh, you guys want me to play? Okay, I'll play.
I actually think he should go to Mexico and just come across the border. I mean,
they got
could have done over the weekend and said hi to Joe. Yeah,
Title 47, go on, just walk in.
Just walk in, man. Yeah. They don't got to worry about it.
Yeah.
Get past that, and although just tell them to give them a free cell phone and tell them to hook up a year later.
Yeah.
So there you go.
Here's your court date. Make sure you show up. Yeah, okay.
Well, moving on from that, we want to get into the next one is really just more of informational, because it's anytime we hear about a player going through a circumstance, especially a good guy, we want to stop and acknowledge that, and also just let them know our thoughts and prayers with them. And that's Liam Hendriks. If you haven't heard, he's got non-Hodgkin's lymphoma, and so he put out a statement. The team put out a statement. But at the end of the day, great player for the White Sox. I really feel for their fans. I've got a couple friends at the gym who are huge White Sox fans. They were bummed about the news, and so our thoughts and prayers. If you happen to be listening to this, we want to let you know we're thinking of you. We're praying for you, and we're pulling for you. We can't wait to see you back in that White Sox uniform, closing out games and doing what you do best. But hopefully this is a great time for you and your family to come together too.
Mm-hmm.
So
absolutely.
All right, one last thing dealing with baseball. Want to get into our man Johnny Cueto, who actually went to the White Sox last year, kind of revived his career. He kind of went through just I want to read this here. So because it's really interesting. I saw this and I was like, wow. So he had a great start of his career, and then he goes to the Giants, and all of a sudden, 2017, blisters, forearm tightness from July to September, left ankle sprain, April 2018, right elbow inflammation, May through July 2018, right elbow strain, July, end of season 2018, Tommy John surgery, recovery until September 2019, grade 1 lat strain, April through May 2021, right flexor strain, August 2021, right elbow strain, September 2021, and all of a sudden he gets released by the Giants. The White Sox pick him up in 2022, and he just gets that fire back in his belly and does great. Yeah. I mean, he just does great pitching.
Do you still have his injuries pulled up?
Yeah.
What was the first one you read? Ankle?
The first one was blisters, forearm tightness from July to September 2018, and then right after that was left ankle sprain.
Yeah, ankles. That stuck out. One of his first injuries was his ankle, and then all the bad stuff started happening.
Yeah.
It seems like ground up injuries always affect everything else first.
Well, you notice that in baseball a lot. I mean, name an outfielder who has ankle, Achilles heel, hamstring type issues that come back and do well. Most of them, I mean, when they come back from those, that's usually like the kiss of death, not necessarily for their career, certainly for their power. I think of like King Griffey Jr. or Matt Holliday, a lot of great players who played the outfield, and all of a sudden they get some kind of a leg injury, they come back, and it doesn't mean that they don't hit home runs. I mean, King Griffey just went from like hitting 38 to like 18 to 19, so had some power, but it's like their power's cut in half. Matt Holliday goes from hitting, 30 something home runs or high 20s to, hitting 14, 15. Still had some power, but you're paying, you're thinking of a guy like that, you think 30 home runs, 40 home runs for those kind of guys, and all of a sudden, they're hitting half what they normally hit. And so that leg is definitely a thing. And you think about pitchers, I mean, it's the groundwork to how their arms, right? Their legs have to be strong. They have to have strong legs to be able to throw.
Yep. Something else compensates.
Yep, exactly. And when that does, usually that leads to hip and other problems once you start with leg problems, and that's what we see there, right? Forearm tightness. You're probably right. I'd be interested to know. I bet you he had feet problems in 2017, and that led to the forearm tightness and blisters.
You're probably right.
And I bet you it was already bothering him, and did that. So he agrees to a 1-year deal with the Marlins for $8.5 million guaranteed. 37 years old. Okay, last year, 3.35 ERA. Pitched 158 over 158 innings. So, and he, however, allowed 9.2 hits per 9 innings. So, not really. He walked 1.9 batters per 9 innings. So he was a solid pitcher down the stretch for the White Sox. Probably their best pitcher. And made their season last year at least somewhat sufferable. But that being said, and I say that just for anybody who knows White Sox, they had a lot of injuries last year. They had a lot of their stars out last year. So, but I mean, he was the kind of that bright star in that, and now he's gone. He's with the Marlins. What makes that interesting to me, though, is that he signed with the Marlins. So, and here's the part that really intrigues me with this whole ordeal with Cueto. They already had 5 young pitchers, but they have been rumored to be dangling any one of those pitchers not named Alcantara. Okay, so Pablo Lopez is the most popular one you're hearing, but supposedly they're willing to trade one of their young pitchers to get a young hitter. So I think of this, and it's kind of ironic. Excuse me here, that that's happening because I think about just 5, 6, 7 years ago, it was the opposite. They had a bunch of young power outfielders that they traded to get pitching, which is how they got Alcantara from the Cardinals, was trading Ozuna. So now they're in the opposite situation. They got all these pitchers and no hitters. Back then they had all these hitters and no pitchers. So they go out and they get Cueto. Is he an insurance pitcher, or is this the guy that allows them to make the trade they're wanting to make? Do they trade to somebody? Rumors. There's lots of different rumors going out about who they could trade for, anywhere from the Pirates being involved in that, because they've obviously got a center fielder who's a little disgruntled, but a team like the Marlins would love to have a power-hitting center fielder. The Cardinals have been tied with them with O'Neill a little bit. So
I think personally, the Marlins. I don't think the Marlins. They didn't sign Cueto to win. I don't. I mean, I don't think so. I think they're setting up. They, like you said, they have 5 young pitchers. I think 3 of them are going to be free agents coming up soon, if in a year or 2.
Yeah, but he's only signed for a couple of years, so it's not like.
No, I know, but instead of having to pay Pablo Lopez $100 million or Sandy Alcantara,
Yeah.
like they're preparing for the salary
ship.
dump. Yeah,
Yeah.
they're preparing for that.
Yeah.
You know, which is fine. That's their business model. They like to make money, so they dump off people that are going to have to get paid.
Well, they've done it. There's no doubt about it. You know, I always think of Cueto. Actually, it's funny. I used to like cringe when I hear that name because of the famous Cards-Reds fight and how he hurt our catcher. But over the years, my heart's softened. He's gone through his share of injuries. It is good to see him back on the field. Good to see him pitching well. He definitely has a unique delivery.
Mm-hmm.
You know when he's delivering. So we'll have to keep an eye on the Marlins, though, because I really think this may free them up to make that trade, get a young outfielder that they can control for several years, trade somebody like Lopez. I don't think they're trying to trade their stud, but I think
Right.
Lopez has been rumored to be on a lot of rumors on the block. And
But don't be surprised if they do trade him
yeah,
before they have to sign him.
absolutely.
So
Well, Lopez comes up sooner. I think Lopez is a free agent in 2 years. I think Alcantara has still got 3 years out or 4 years
I
out.
thought they were the same timeline. Maybe
No, I think Alcantara is like just maybe a year more. It's very similar though. I don't think they're way off.
Oh, maybe because Alcantara got some time with the Cardinals. Is that right? A little bit of time. Yeah, maybe.
Yeah, I'm not sure about all that. So I'll just say that they seem to be they've been a hard no on trading him with all the rumors, but they've been available for Lopez if the price was right.
Yeah.
So it's been what they've been talking about. So. All right, well, let's get into some faith and culture talks here. So, there's a lot of things going on since our last conversation. Let's start with what happened late Friday night into Saturday morning. Republicans get their speaker. They meet the deal. Kevin McCarthy is now in charge of the House. Any thoughts on that from you? Have you been paying attention to the controversy behind that over the last week or so?
Yes, I understand it a little bit. I just don't. I mean, I think they had to concede a lot of things, right? The majority Republicans.
You know what? Anytime you're trying to become Speaker of the House, you're trying to pull a group of 200 men together, all with different needs, right? And so, I mean, every party does that. You've kind of got to concede different things. And so they had 20 holdouts. 15 of those 20 seemed to be centered around certain things that they thought really should be priority. I would say I listened to a great broadcast a few days back by Ben Shapiro. He did a really good job of breaking this down. So credit to Ben on that. But I would just say that, I think that you had 15 guys with good intentions. I think that they're right. I think that what they're asking for is right. I don't think that they understand that you can't necessarily, sometimes putting a bill out there when you know it's not going to pass really doesn't help anybody. Okay? You want to put a bill out because that just looks like you're losing, And I think some of these guys are so tired of not even putting these bills to a vote that they're like, we got to do something. Okay? We've gone 20 years as Republicans and we haven't moved forward an inch. And so the only way we do that is at least start throwing things up there, and maybe one of these will stick. And so, and I think the other part is, and this is where I would maybe disagree with Ben's assessment, is that media has changed. So maybe right now is the time to do that, because maybe in the past it looked a little different, but I don't think people look at things quite the same anymore, especially those who are going to support the conservative side. So in my opinion, I thought it was great that those guys held out. I thought it was great that they found some ground to work with. McCarthy seems like he's going to do a lot of these things. They already voted right away on defunding the IRS agents that that was passed prior. So go hire them, but I don't know how you're going to feed them or pay them. So
I think they deemed them unhireable. Like They froze their hiring capabilities.
That's because you can't hire people you don't have money for.
Right.
They took the money away.
Yeah.
The House, those who are in control of the House have this purse. That's always been the thing. And so, they defunded it. And so, I go back and say I think that McCarthy will do an okay job. What concerns me more is the guy on the other side. I'm not a McConnell fan. He seems to be much more entrenched in the Rhino stuff. I mean, I get that McCarthy's been around too for a while. But I think he tends, from what I can tell, I think he genuinely has conservative values. I think he also understands the game maybe a little bit better than most, and it is a little bit of a game. And
I think that was the holdup. Is that how is Kevin McCarthy any different than anybody that's come before him?
Well, I would say he seems to be a little more aggressive. He seems to be a little more conservative. I wasn't a huge Bonner fan. You'd really have to go back to the Newt Gingrich days to find a good Speaker of the House for the Republican side. Really, since then, Paul Ryan kind of took it. Not a big fan of his. Bonner, he was mediocre, lukewarm. I mean, I'm not a big fan of his. I mean, he shows up to Pelosi's retirement the other day, all crying and talking about how his daughter wanted to be like her. And I'm like going, I mean, you're supposed to be, at one point you were like the leader of the conservatives. It's interesting to watch all these leaders that once were considered great conservative people, like saying, my daughter wants to be like you. And I'm like going, why wouldn't your daughter want to be like you? Not the liberal, but you're the conservative. Why? If she's wanting to be like her and not you, what that tells me is she got some problems at home.
That sounds like he's groveling. Well, I mean, politicians, somebody could say they're conservative, but they want to stay in politics, right? That's their career. So they'll have a tendency to do what keeps them in that position.
That goes to a post I put a while back. I actually posted 3 things that could happen that would help change our government and make it better for the people. I believe it with all my heart. One is get rid of executive orders. Executive orders, presidents have abused them. It makes them no different than the king that we left in England when we became the United States. The idea is that the people would have to say. The only thing that should be executive ordered is military commands during the time of war. The idea that you can stop construction on this, or you can tell people they can't drill oil or whatever, all that stuff was always meant to go through Congress. It should be voted on.
The states.
Yep, absolutely.
Yeah.
And so I think that would be the number one thing. Number 2 that I posted beyond that would be term limits. Term limits, because just what you just said, you get people entrenched. The more they're entrenched, they're running just to be reelected. They're also, the longer they're in those positions, the more easier it is for the lobbyist groups to get a hold of them and have them by a string, right? Mm-hmm. So I think that you find a lot of young politicians come into politics with great ideas and thoughts, and it seems like about 2 terms in or 3 terms in, we're all of a sudden going, hey, that guy, now he's just another rhino, and all of a sudden you're like, wow, that guy turned it too. So that happens over and over and over again. So I definitely think term limits. Number 3, and we were just you kind of just brought it up too, is we should push everything down to the state level. I think, and that starts with the monetary. I don't think that the federal government should tax people. I think that it should be the states that tax the people. The federal government sends a bill based on population and GDP to the states, and the states write that check, and that way the states can hold it back. If the federal government is not acting on its behalf, I think the federal government should have a lighter military, and the states should have a bigger military. And if they need to all come together, they can do that and work in conjunction. They can, but I definitely think in all the 3-letter acronyms that are out there for red tape in people's lives should all be brought down to the state level if needed at all. And the FBI should be broken up into 7 federal districts versus 1 central power, and they should not have FISA warrants because they didn't have them prior to 2001. So why do they need them now when they're the biggest abusers of the FISA warrant? So I read a stat from a FBI leader who once recently said, I thought he said somewhere between 70 or 80% of all FISA warrants by the FBI are rejected or should be rejected because and comparatively, like not even 1 out of 10 from the CIA. So I mean, it just tells you the amount of abuse that the FBI has done on those.
I agree with what you said on those 3 points.
Yeah,
those seem like common sense.
Well, that they're constitutional,
yeah.
Right? I mean, we're talking about just going back to basics of, it's like when people come to me and talk about the Christian faith, and they start talking about all these crazy rules, and I'll just be like, stop.
Yeah.
Just go down to doing the Ten Commandments. If you just did the Ten Commandments, love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your mind, with all your soul. Start there. And see number one in everything you do. Love your neighbor as yourself. Are you serving your family? Are you serving those around you? I mean, the best witness you'll ever have is just serving those around you. And just go down there. Don't lie. Be truthful with what you say, what you mean. Be truthful. Let your yeses be yes and your no's. Just go down the Ten Commandments. And if you just kind of get those down in the back of your mind, you don't need all the rest of that stuff. Is just branches off of those basics. So.
Well, I agree. I don't want anything. I don't want the government to have anything to do with me, except just protect me if another country comes and tries to take our land.
Yeah.
That's it. Leave me alone.
I agree. I couldn't agree more. I'm very much into a lot less government. So talking about the next thing though, because the next big battle now for Republicans that seems to be heating up right now is the battle of who's going to run the RNC. So you've got Ronna McDaniels. She has been in charge now since 2017. She is the niece of Mitt Romney, and I'm going to quote this a little bit or paraphrase it. I mean, quote, paraphrase. But Axios basically said, hey, she's not won really or had any type of major victory in charge of the RNC. So when you look at that, yeah. And so you had Mike, the pillow guy, trying to vie for it. He doesn't seem to be as serious of a candidate, I don't think, as some of these others. I know they've had some talks. But there's one that really stands out to me, and that's Harmay. If you haven't heard of Harmay, I have to tell you, then you're missing out. She has been in the backbone of a lot of things going on with the conservative movement, her and her law firm. They've represented everything from Donald Trump to some of the recent stuff we've been seeing in Arizona. Her law firm has been involved in trying to help clean up this country. Very active on that front. And one of the things that I really thought was pretty cool about her is when she said she was running, she said one of the first things she would do is bring in Scott Presler. If you don't know another guy that if you haven't heard of, Scott Presler has been on his own time and money, own dime it seems, running all over the country, trying to recruit people for the RNC and train people how to recruit people for the to get registered as a Republican. And so, I look and I go, okay, that's what you want the RNC doing, right? Getting people to understand the conservative values and getting them, if they agree with those, to sign up and become a registered Republican. Isn't that?
Yeah, I agree. What do you think about this idea? Whoever you put in charge of it, they had to have said no at least once to the position. That'd be a good start. I think Harmay would be a great asset to the Republican Party. I think that she brings a good leadership. Certainly not tied to the swamp like what you got going on right now. I'm not a fan of Mitt Romney. He's probably my least favorite Republican. If I want to look at a turncoat, that's exactly who I think of. I mean, he's one of the top 3 or 4 that always comes to mind. So, I'm a huge fan of Harmay. I followed her career, or followed her for the last probably 6-7 years. Watched her work. She's won many cases. Represented. She was one of the representatives for the Daily Wire when they were dealing with the COVID restrictions and went all the way to Supreme Court and presented. So again, she seems to really have the conservative movement at heart. She's put her own money and time and effort into that. Same thing with Scott Presler. So I'm always respectful of those who are already serving and have earned. They didn't. Mommy and Daddy didn't get them into, or relationship didn't get them at the right table. It was their hard work that earned them there. And it seems like that is the case there. So, I would welcome that change. I think the Republican Party would be better with that change. So if you're out there and you're in your state and you haven't already, definitely consider supporting and letting your legislators know for the RNC, the leaders for your local state RNC, who to vote for. Okay. And the last one, which came on late yesterday, this is actually kind of funny. I thought this was hilarious. Okay. We've got, you thought Beto O'Rourke was bad. We now have Stacey Abrams, who goes on the Drew Barrymore show yesterday and says she will probably run again. Okay, she's already lost twice for governor, but hey, third, fourth, fifth, sixth, why not? She makes it close.
Yeah,
I don't know much about her other than I don't know. She just seems like a goofy, angry person.
I agree with that
Right?
100%. Yeah, I would
She's
agree.
she's like, why are you so angry and why are you so goofy?
Yeah,
Pick one.
yeah.
Pick one. I don't know.
Well, I just thought it was kind of really funny that, it totally reminds me of Beto O'Rourke. You just keep going. How many spaces you run against Ted Cruz, you lose. You run against this, you lose. Now you're running, governor,
What
you
would make
lose.
them do that?
And they spend millions and millions and millions of dollars.
Why would they do that?
Well, they raise millions and millions of dollars, and they can
Themselves,
yeah, and then they can use that through their, expense it out through, their campaigns. So I guess probably to raise more money so they can spend it and claim it as campaign expenses. So I have no idea.
It's a way of life, I suppose.
I
It's their job. They literally just run failed political campaigns.
very well could be, my friend. So, well, hey, thank you guys for tuning in again. Like, share, subscribe, let your friends know, and we look forward to seeing you soon.